Trade Radio is proudly supported by Host Plus, the official superannuation partner of the AFL. Having a top performer on your side, that's a plus.
This is general advice only. Consider the relevant Host Plus PDS available at hostplus.com.au before deciding if Host Plus is appropriate for you. For a description of the target market, please read the Target Market Determination, TMD, available at hostplus.com.au. Past performance is not a reliable indicator of future performance.
Of course, Stephen Silvani is a football legend, and he's joining us this morning as part of Trade Radio, and that is thanks to Tyre Power, Australia's biggest independent tyre retailer. Sauce, good morning to you, mate.
How are you, guys?
Going really well, thanks. Mate, can we start locally, if you don't mind? Jordan Dawson and this move to the Swans. There's a lot going on. We heard from Tom Harley yesterday, quite firm on what the Swans want, which is fair enough. What do they deserve?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I haven't seen a lot of him play, but obviously he's valued by the Sydney Swans. I think it's a great get by the Crows, by the way. My understanding is, right at the minute, it could be tied up. There's a four-way deal that could be happening where pick 17's involved with the Bulldogs, the Saints, the Swans as well, and there's and also the Crows. So hopefully that can be done pretty soon. But look, he's a really good get by the Crows. Look, I think he's a pick between 15 and 25. And hopefully that can get done in the next couple of days.
Sos, do you like the way Sydney has stood firm on this one and the lines from Tom Harley where he's made the point that it is an out-of-contract player, not a free agent, and also that he wants the Swans to be shown some respect by Adelaide in the negotiations?
Look, Michael, I think all clubs, particularly the quality of Dawson, you basically, they are uncontracted, but you still want a fair return. I guess when they are you see the situation of Jordan Clark from Geelong where he wants to get back to WA. I mean, once you sign a contract, it is more difficult to actually get to a club if you want to leave that particular club. But out of contract makes it a bit easier. But look, most clubs are fair in terms of what they do. There's obviously haggling. Obviously, the media will puts a little bit of pressure on it. We only got through the first, what are we, Tuesday today? The official trade period started yesterday. So there's plenty of time for them to get this deal done, and I'm sure they'll get it done.
So each and every year, Sauce, we know we see there's so many names floated around and it's just talk. Is Pete Laddams one of them, or can you see him going somewhere?
Look, I think if Port actually got the right deal, they'd probably do that. They've got young Hayes as a backup ruckman. He probably doesn't play forward, but there's a little bit about saying, okay, what can we get? There might be some value in him. What can we get? Is it a pick? Is it a play that we can get through the door? Can we save a little bit of money in the salary cap? So Port do this pretty well. Pretty much each year they can offload a player or two and save a bit of money and go for the draft. They've actually picked really well over the last 2 to 3 years. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a move there.
Stephen, what are you making of Hawthorn? There are so many names that keep being thrown up day by day, a lot of uncontracted players, but what are the Hawks really about in this trade period?
Oh, look, I think they've, even up 12 months ago, they said they wanted to attack the draft. So, they've got a new coach. He's probably got some time on his side. So he's probably trying to get as much talent through the door. So whether they can get a player or two out and get some really good picks where they can get into that elite talent slot in the draft, I'm sure they'd be looking at that. So they just need to be a little bit careful, though. I think you still need some experienced players there, and particularly the right ones to show the those kids that you bring into your club. They need to be able to be shown the right way, and that's really important from a development point of view.
Is there any fact that Tom Mitchell could be traded?
I haven't heard, to be honest. That's been running around town, that rumour, for probably well over 2 to 3 months. So, look, only Tom or Hawthorn would really know that. I haven't heard his name come up with any club.
Right. Yet
there's been some rumour about it, but I haven't heard his name come up.
So some talk yesterday about Sam Powell-Pepper and potential move west. With things like the chance for more midfield minutes, can you see that being a possibility given just how stacked the Eagles' midfield already is?
I can actually see that one happening, particularly if he wants to get back to the West. He sort of was probably out of favour at Port and really struggling to sort of get a game towards the end of the year. So I can see that sort of happening. Yes, the Eagles midfield is stacked, but they've got to try something. I think they've got to freshen their group up a little bit, West Coast, and probably a little bit the way they play their game. So I could probably see that happening, particularly if he does want to go back to the West.
Stephen, what's happened to our usual headline act in the trade period at Essendon with Adrian Dodoro? Why is he so silent?
Well, no, look, I think he had a bit on his plate last year, and it was under a heap of pressure, but he did such a wonderful job to be able to get what he got through and really select well. It's interesting when you select well at the national draft, the pressure does come off, and he did that really well. I think he just realises too is sometimes it's a bit better to go back to the draft and pick your own. And culturally, you can develop that kid whatever way you want. So, often you bring players into the club, they've got, a few warts and not. So, going to the draft, well, you can mould that person the way you want to mould them as a footballer.
So where's Geelong on that space as well? Because we keep looking at that list and thinking that it's reached its limit. Where does Geelong go next?
Yeah, that's really interesting because they're in a situation where they probably need a ruckman as well. They've got a number of young ruckmen on their list, young developing ruckmen, but they probably, I think if that's the one thing that sort of stands out, they just haven't been able to get that right. Yes, they've got players that can go through there, but certainly, they had a crack at Todd Goldstein a couple of years ago. You can understand why they did that. So, whether they're back in the market to find, someone that's in that 25, 26-year-old age group that's a bona fide ruckman, it's going to be an interesting decision, particularly when there are a number of ruckmen, a number of the ruckmen that are available. There are a couple of older type ruckmans like Segler. His name's sort of come up, but they've brought a number of older players through the door, particularly over the last couple of years. So it's going to be interesting to see what tack they do take.
Speaking of ruckman, probably not in that category, but Mason Cox, can you see him getting a new opportunity somewhere else?
Yeah, he's an interesting one, isn't he? I'd actually like to see him play in the ruck. I think he can. I do a little bit of trade radio with Matt Rendell, and he says he could be a really good ruckman. Obviously, he's been playing forward at the Pies purely because they've had Grundy as their number one ruckman. But look, he's something that might be done late or might be done as a delisted player. But he's worthwhile. I think he's worth another crack for some club out there anyway.
So, Stephen, if you were to rate each of the 18 clubs, who's under the most pressure as a list manager to come out of this trade period with something?
Good question. Good question. Look, I think there's no real pressure to get players through the door. I don't think there's any club out there that that is under a pressure to say you're going to get a couple of players through the door. Yeah. There's actually not, in terms of quality, there's not a lot of quality available this year. Most players have been signed up. I think the reduction in list size, even it being just 2 less spots over the last couple of years, has made things difficult. The total player payments have, really hurt some clubs, the squeeze on that. So the movement of players probably isn't there. So I wouldn't say there's real pressure on list managers to get players through the door. Teams are tending to probably wanting to go to the draft because, it's quite a thin draft last year. And, this year there seems to be some good top-end talent. So they're opting to probably go to the draft.
Just a word on Callum Coleman-Jones. I think North Melbourne have made the first move, so they've offered a future third-round pick, which will probably fall around number 40. What do you think he's worth in terms of, Tigers won't be happy with that, but what do you think Coleman-Jones is worth?
Yeah, well, probably, if I'm the Tigers, I'm wanting something in the second round. If I'm North, I'm saying, I reckon the third round's probably right. So he's a player that hasn't played a lot, so it's hard to get a good value on him. But look, I think the Tigers are going to have to do that deal purely because North have got the pre-season pick sort of sitting there. If they don't want to do the deal, well, he'll probably just go through as a pre-season pick. Stephen,
where are we on the big picture of, we've got free agency, But are we getting any closer to free trading, even contracted players where clubs can make the move on players?
I'd like to see that, particularly once they get to their free agents period. So I just reckon some of these contracts that are sort of given out, and look, ultimately it's the clubs that makes that final call, whether they give these. But I like what they do in the US where you're able to trade players under contract, particularly I think once they get to that age of 26, well, I think it should be fair game. That's just my view. You want the big contract, and free agency tends to give you that contract. Well, it's time. If you're not performing, well, if you can get a deal done with another club, well, I think that gives that club a bit of freedom right at the minute.
Hey, Sauce, before we let you go, mate, you mentioned last week about changing the medical sub-rule to allow fit players to come off in the last 10 minutes of the game. Are you getting much feedback on that? Because
no, we haven't.
We think you should be. We think you should be getting positive feedback on it.
Yeah, I just watched the grand final, and you saw two players just sitting there thinking, it'd be good to be able to, for them to be able to experience it. They do get paid sitting on the bench, so I don't know. I understand it was there more so for the concussion rule, but I just think we should probably look at something that we can utilise that player, particularly in the last quarter anyway.
Mate, we appreciate your time this morning, mate. Such a great insight as always, and hopefully we can chat to you again really soon.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Great talking to you.
Thanks, Stephen.
Stephen Silvani joining us this morning as part of our trade chat. Type our great deals brands you can trust like Kumo. The great race sale is on now. It's going to be a very interesting couple of days, Rich.
And the big news on a network front is that Trade Radio this year goes to 8 p.m. each evening.
Absolutely.
So you can get a good wash-up at the end of every day.
Hook it into my veins, Michelangelo.
Well, it's a big part of footy now.
It really is. Next,
just as long as we're not mentioned in a trade.
Next.
Do they have future 7th-round draft picks to trade for us?
Is there a 7th-round draft pick? That's pick 3,000.
Oh, dear.
Who needs to pull their socks up as part of Underworks? Let us know. Someone from the weekend could be.
It could be someone from overnight.
Could be someone from overnight. Let us know via the text line 0427154166.
I think we've got a big contender.
Special shout-outs. Welcome. We are doing it this morning as well, of course. We're doing it thanks to...
Trade Radio is proudly supported by Host Plus, the official superannuation partner of the AFL. Having a top performer on your side, that's a plus.
This is general advice only. Consider the relevant Host Plus PDS available at hostplus.com.au before deciding if Host Plus is appropriate for you. For a description of the target market, please read the Target Market Determination, TMD, available at hostplus.com.au. Past performance is not a reliable indicator of future performance.